What's up everybody, this is PICCnick and I'm here on a ARK Aberration server. It's just a private server because I wanted to bring you guys some of the things I've learned about the rock drake so far after Aberration released. Starting off with just some of the basic mechanics. It can go forward and backwards, but it can't go side to side. If you want to turn, you actually have to walk in circles. Pressing C by default is a camouflage ability. This doesn't make you completely invisible, but it does make you a lot harder to see, especially when you're standing still, with how dark Aberration naturally is. You can do everything that you normally can do while invisible. You can attack, you can jump, you can glide. When it comes to what the rock drake can climb, it's just about everything. I like to think of it as like a real-life spider. They can go upside down even. So that makes it very versatile for going through even something like caves where you couldn't normally fly. Having this creature to actually walk and get on the walls might save you a lot of trouble. Now, coming to the more important part, which is gliding. By default, when you press spacebar, you jump. And as long as you're not touching anything, you're going to come straight back down. However, if you hold shift when you jump, by pressing spacebar, space plus shift, you now start to glide. Now, gliding is a lot similar to a griffin, except it doesn't have a natural way to gain momentum after. So you can look down and move very quickly, but it's very difficult to pull back up. So it truly is a glide ability. Until eventually you're going to stagnate and you're going to fall. And yes, you do take fall damage when you do that. The other interesting part has to do a lot with the cursor. When you jump and glide, you'll see a cursor appear like this. That gives you the ability to do like a leap attack. And this leap attack can actually attach to anything, so that you can even leap and then end up upside down. The most effective combination I've found to move around has been using jump, glide, and then ultimately the power attack to latch on to whatever's around you. Yes, it is a very damaging attack as well, which can be useful in PvP, because it's relatively difficult to avoid with how quickly you move. Now the downside to this attack is you can't change directions once it's initiated. So if you jump and go to a glide attack and you want to switch and go off to the side, you can't actually do that, and you will go to the location of your cursor when you click that jump attack. The other interesting thing about this rock drake is that when you latch onto something, using your right mouse click button will detach you from the object. So a lot of times being stagnant on walls like this, you can get kind of disoriented, especially because it's more difficult to move around when you're vertical or upside down, because a lot of the controls on your mouse will be backwards. So by default, by pressing right mouse click, you detach yourself and fall back to the ground, which can be useful when you're getting your bearings again. As you can see, the rock drake can actually glide for a surprisingly long time. I am on infinite stats right now, so you can't glide forever. This is just to show you the gist of it. They're not that quick, and you actually can't level movement speed in them. Now when it comes to actually putting points into the Rock Drake, the important thing to remember is that they do have a saddle. This saddle is relatively cheap to make, and it does give the Rock Drake 25 armor, which effectively almost doubles its health pool that you put into it. So one of the things that I would recommend for a Rock Drake that I did here is to probably hover right around 5,000 health, and then at a minimum of 2,000 stamina. Granted, I did force tame a level 20 Rock Drake, so my stats are naturally lower and harder to reach, but once you start getting those higher levels, 120s, 150s, stuff like that, you will start to see higher levels of HP and stamina. They don't get that many points per stamina, similar to a Griffin in my eyes, where you're going to need a lot of that stamina just to make it function PvP. Gliding does take a fair amount of stamina, especially with diving damage. As you can see, I have 1,800 stamina and I've already lost a quarter of it. So in my eyes, 2,000 stamina is a must on these, a minimum for PvP. The other interesting fact about Rock Drakes is that they can actually swim. As shown here, I actually dove into the water using the glide ability and started swimming. They do have oxygen, however I am on infinite stats at the moment, just so I can get around the map easier. Now when it comes to getting your own Rock Drake, one of the things you're going to have to do is visit what I have dubbed the Rock Drake Trench, because it is a deep ravine full of Nameless and other Rock Drakes, and then what you find to be Rock Drake eggs. As per usual, you pick up the Rock Drake and all the other Rock Drakes around you aggro to you. Once you have the egg, just like any other egg, you want to incubate it using air conditioners, stuff like that. I don't actually know the incubation time or the duration it takes to raise, but when you actually hatch it, similar to wyverns, you will need what is called Nameless Venom. And you use it to raise your Rock Drake. If I can get these things to stop. These are nameless. They're really annoying rats, basically. They spawn out of the ground. Once you land, they all spring up, and they come in packs of dozens and dozens and dozens. They're not that dangerous alone, but once you get a large enough pack, they're actually extremely dangerous. I had a Rock Drake with a couple thousand HP, and I got swarmed by them, and I was dead before I could do anything, because in packs they are extremely dangerous, especially because they kind of get up underneath you and glitch on you, and it becomes difficult to actually kill them. Plus, they're surprisingly tanky. This is their little enrage that they do. They do a little bit more damage than their enrage. As you can see now, they're starting to spring up out of the ground again. I'm going to assume that it takes about the same time to raise a Rock Drake as it does a wyvern. So 4 days is probably a safe guess. I haven't actually done it yet on any sort of server. This Aberration has been out for about an hour when I'm doing all this. The other thing I've learned is the last mechanic I'm going to show you guys. When it comes to like walking, as you can tell on the top right hand side, that indication is saying I'm climbing. If I were to hold down right mouse button, it says I'm no longer climbing, which makes walking around a lot easier. So you can hold down your right mouse button to actually walk around easier without getting hung up on all the little rocks like this. Anytime you're on another surface, when you press spacebar from a wall, the rock drake actually takes off directly from the wall and pushes out. So make sure that when you're on a wall, you actually either climb to the top to jump straight up, or you're prepared to head outwards. Overall thoughts on the rock drake is that it seems to be a pretty cool creature. The one downside it has is the fact that it is extremely clunky to maneuver because of the fact that it tries to grab onto everything. As you can tell in this little rock trench, these nameless spawn everywhere. They're actually really annoying to get rid of because they're surprisingly tanky for being so small. But with them being so clunky, I put them in the same category as wyvern. Due to the lack of flying dinos I've seen so far in Aberration, I think they will be extremely useful in that part. It's getting really annoying. Due to the overall lack of flying dinos, I feel like rock drakes do have their purpose in Aberration. However, for PvP, I tend to view them as the same category as wyverns. Yes, they have a saddle, which makes them a lot more versatile in PvP, but the thing that's a real drawback on them is how clunky they are to actually maneuver. Unlike a pteranodon or an argent even, it's difficult to get them through super tight spaces, I find. So especially when it comes to PvP, you really need to have straight line vision and head-on sights. Something like a griffin is pretty maneuverable or similar to a tapejara. Also with the pteranodon, you can do kind of pinpoint turns. Like the wyvern, the rock drake has a very wide turn radius, making it very clunky and not as reliant for PvP as I think people are going to view it to be. Overall, I'd say definitely get one. They're very versatile. They can help you fly, climb, as well as do considerable damage. I hope you guys learned something. I'll see y'all next time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.